Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with Chavez. And I'm your host, Chavez. And today I'd like to talk to you about where I believe the AFC West will wind up by the time playoffs come around to us. Whether there's fans in the stands when that time comes or not, my bet is that there will be. I don't believe the NFL is going to let an entire season go without fans. The way that it sounds, the way they're talking, it sounds like they're going to open up at least 25% capacity when they do start letting fans come in, which will probably be at the start of the season. Maybe in the preseason. We'll have to see where we're at when that time comes. Okay, so as soon as Kansas City shipped off Alex Smith, right, my brother and I had a conversation. He said that he thought Kansas City wasn't going to be that great in the 2018 season. I told him, I was like, dude, they must have gotten rid of Alex Smith for a reason. Like, they must think that Mahomes is their guy. They wouldn't do that not knowing at least something about Patrick Mahomes and his character and the fact that they believed he was going to be able to lead the team. I told my brother he had a pretty decent game in that Week 17 matchup he had against the Broncos at the end of the 2017 regular season. Now look at this guy. He's the new standard for the quarterback position and will be for years to come, barring a tragedy. I've always felt that Derek Carr was unfairly tossed aside after that tough luck broken leg that he suffered right when they were getting ready to go to the playoffs. I personally believe he's a great star to build your team around and to have leading your team. It just seems off with him in Las Vegas with Gruden. The Chargers bring in a new era themselves, moving on from the longtime starter in Rivers, leaning toward a Tyrod Taylor-led 2020, and that's not really a bad thing for the Chargers, I don't think. It may be another Cleveland-type situation for Taylor is what I fear, where he starts the first couple of games and something happens, and Justin Herbert comes in just like Baker Mayfield did, right? There's always that possibility. And we'll talk about that, but everyone is picking the Broncos to be the comeback team of the year, if you will. I believe they will show they're better than their record showed last year, but still, in my opinion, another year or two away from true contention. So let's get down to who is going to come away with quite possibly the second toughest division in all of the NFL, meaning the AFC West. Here are my projections for them in the 2020 season, their records and division placement. As with the rest of these videos so far, I've been leading off with the division champions, but not only are these guys defending division champions, but they are defending Super Bowl champions, and that's Kansas City. And by all accounts, they look poised to possibly have a mini dynasty in the post-Brady New England era. This Kansas City team has seemingly kept their entire Super Bowl team intact, with having undoubtedly the best talent the league has seen at the helm on offense in Patrick Mahomes. It helps that he has the coaches that he does, the ones that place trust in him in the first place. Trading away a Pro Bowl quarterback for an unproven guy takes a lot of guts to do in this league. And I'm happy to see that pay off for Andy Reid. I've always been a fan of his since he was coaching the Eagles and took them to 5 straight NFC championship games. I followed him throughout that. I've always been a diehard Bills fan, but always appreciate good football too. I like the offseason that Kansas City has had with bringing in the talented Jordan Ta'amu from the XFL bringing him in to back up Mahomes, or if he has to miss a couple of games again, he can fill in there, and I believe that Jordan will be able to fill that spot pretty nice for you guys. I also like the draft pickup in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That is going to be a fantastic pick for you guys as well, just to add to that scorching offense that you guys have. Speaking of their offense, I do look forward to their matchup with the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night. I believe that was week 6, if I remember correctly. And the reason I look forward to that so much is I'm not sure that Mahomes has faced a defense with the level of talent on every level that Buffalo has. He's faced some teams that had pretty good fronts. In the 49ers, they had a ferocious front seven, but their back end of the defense, in my opinion, isn't anywhere near the caliber that Buffalo's defense is. I think that Buffalo's defensive backfield is phenomenal. One of, if not the best in the league. So I really look forward to that matchup and seeing how high scoring or not high scoring that game will be, because it could be either way. Kansas City, their offense obviously potent, last year ranking 6th in yards per game and 5th in points per game. They return at full strength, having kept Sammy Watkins through the offseason as well. Not to mention on defense, they will be returning Juan Thornhill, who was really shining as a rookie and probably would have showcased his talents even more in the postseason, because he started to come on late. He had his season cut short by injuries, so he didn't get to show that. But having him back in the fold will strengthen that defense even more. And they were pretty solid in the playoffs for the most part. Overall, last year, ranking 5th in points per game is not too bad at all. But ranking 17th in yards allowed per game is a little bit worrisome. I do see them improving that with a whole nother year together. I don't believe they really lost anybody from the defensive side of the ball. Pretty sure they didn't. Did a little bit of research before this, so I usually do, but I might have missed something here or there. If I do, let me know. Nevertheless, they will be in every game as long as Mahomes is upright, obviously. Even hobbled, he proved to be a problem last year. I see Kansas City going 11-5, most likely winning the division again, especially with a weird offseason and retaining mostly everybody that they had from last year will help their team chemistry, obviously, remain intact and make it so they don't have to tweak as much as other teams are going to have to, that are bringing in new guys and have new coordinators, coaches, players, you name it. Kansas City won't have that problem because they are bringing back all of the same people. I do see them having a couple of missteps through the season, as any defending champ might have, because they have a target on their back. But their division will be tougher this year as well, and we might see another exciting AFC West division race like we did in 2017 that lasted all the way up until the week 17. Predicting a tight division race this season as well, and a young and up-and-coming team making a push to solidify their claim as a force to be reckoned with in the Denver Broncos are a big part of why. The Denver Broncos started to show some real promise toward the end of last season. I'll give them that. But they did lose Chris Harris Jr. and Derek Wolfe, who I believe will be sorely missed. I think the departure of him was very underrated to that team. Now, they did bring in guys to try and fill those holes, and Jarrell Casey, who might be a little bit past his prime, so we'll see how that works out. And AJ Bouye, who is a nice corner if he has somebody that can cover that number one guy every game. He's a nice complementary corner, so weak side corner, I guess. But he proved once Jalen Ramsey left the Jaguars last year that he's not really that lockdown number one guy that you want every snap on the number one receiver. I do like their third round pick at corner. He should step in and help, and let's see if they continue their ways of finding rare talent at that position through the draft. I mean, they had no fly zone, right? And then Chris Harris Jr. has still been there even since then. So for the better part of a decade, they've had and before that, they had Champ Bailey. So the Broncos have had above average cornerback play for more than a decade. So let's see if that draft pick pans out like the rest of them did. I do really like the pick of Jerry Jeudy in the first round, but like I've said before, it usually takes young receivers a little more time to get acclimated to the NFL game. Same goes for the second round pick, KJ Hamler out of Penn State. And with a weird offseason, it might be even harder for these young receivers to get acclimated with their quarterbacks. And I'm not sure what they've been doing as far as getting together or not collectively working on playbooks together during this time where we're starting to open back up, as you've seen some teams starting to do. I know they are doing the protests together, which is, I love the cause. I love that they're doing it as a team and doing it out in the public. But as far as football only, I'm not entirely sure what they have been up to as a team. Bringing in Melvin Gordon, I believe, was a little over the top. They already have a talented guy in Phillip Lindsay, and I don't really see where they needed to sign him. But they most likely will be a running back by committee, with Gordon serving on passing downs and running outside the tackles, while Lindsay does the heavy work between the tackles and pinballs off defenders. This offense will be fun to watch more in the middle of the year after they've had some time to mesh and before winter comes, when it becomes more about the run game. I'm just not sure they have fixed their offensive line problems completely. Bringing on Glasgow was a good move, but what else did they really do? They have one of, if not the most penalized left tackle in the league and didn't fix that yet. I just personally see this team being this year's 2019 Browns, where everyone is giving them all these props, talking them up, and I think the offensive line is going to be their weak spot, like it was for the Browns last season. I do believe Locke will be a little better than Mayfield was because he's in a better situation than Mayfield was in. But just not as well as some people are projecting the Broncos to do. I like their 10th ranked scoring defense and their 12th ranked yards per game defense last season. And getting Bradley Chubb back will definitely help them improve those numbers, because they were missing him for a good chunk of last year. I believe it was more than half the year, if I remember properly. I like this young team, but I think they're another offseason away from having an offensive line worthy of postseason play. I have the Broncos going 8-8, but being in the playoff race until the very end. Like a couple others I've talked about already, I think 2021 will be a good year for this team. I believe Drew Lock will prove he belongs in this league, but needs a little more development and a little more support around him. Now that we've talked about the two teams that are staying in their respective stadiums, let's move on to one of the next two teams that's moving into a new home coming this 2020 season. The Las Vegas Raiders. That's going to take some getting used to saying Las Vegas instead of Oakland. Are looking like they might have a real chance at knocking Kansas City off the throne of the AFC West. They have built a great team overall and added a couple more pieces this offseason that may put them in contention finally. I've liked Derek Carr as a quarterback for a while, not since he came in, but that season where he started to be talked about as an MVP. It does feel like he and Coach Gruden are forcing their relationship for publicity's sake, but I think the coach is keen enough to know that Derek is a great talent to have in the building, at least until he and Mike Mayock can find a replacement that they both love. It shouldn't take Ruggs long to acclimate to the league, since he will already be much faster than a lot of the guys he's going against, like Hollywood Brown last year. I would look for Ruggs to have a similar season to that. Like set the bar there. That's what we're hoping for, right? Look for the Raiders to get him the ball on returns, reverses, quick screens often this year. In my personal opinion, Josh Jacobs got robbed of Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. The only reason he didn't get it is because he plays running back and not quarterback. If he played quarterback, he would have gotten the award. Simple as that. This young buck played only 13 games, but still had 1,100 yards on the ground, a Raiders rookie rushing record, to go with 7 rushing touchdowns. This offense should improve on their 24th ranked points per game average, and I expect to see them around the same offensively, with yards per game at 11th, is where they were last year. Their defense had a couple injuries last year, and they have a decent group of young guys in the defensive backfield that I really like. But I really, really like the Littleton addition to the linebacking core. I believe he alone will help improve this defense as a whole, and they should turn out way better than their 24th points allowed per game and 19th yards per game ranking from a year ago. He should help the young guys on the defensive front from a leadership standpoint, and coming from a winning culture, he's going to help these younger guys, give them some guidance as to how to be a pro, how to have that mentality to win. Another well put together offseason from Gruden and Mayock should have the Raiders competing for a playoff spot this year, as I see the Raiders going 10-6 and vying for that 5th to 7th seed in the playoffs. We'll see when I do my power rankings who I believe will be the odd man out for the playoffs based off these projections. Still a good year for the team that desperately needs to get off to a great start in a new stadium, trying to bring in fans. Having a playoff year, your first season there, definitely bodes well for morale. Speaking of starting a new year in a new stadium, the AFC West foe Los Angeles Chargers opened their new home without their longtime face of the franchise quarterback in Phillip Rivers. The two mutually decided to cut ties after this past season, leaving some to believe the Chargers might go after Tom Brady. But I knew the Chargers were already sitting on a quality starting quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. He may not be the flashiest player to trot out there at quarterback, but he definitely won't lose the game for you, like Phillip Rivers did on a handful of occasions throughout his career. Turning the ball over at an alarming rate at times. Tyrod Taylor is the epitome of game manager for a quarterback in the NFL. He has the ability to win some games for your team for sure, as proven by his winning record as a starter and the fact that he took the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs after them missing it the previous 17 years. That being said, he doesn't take a whole lot of shot plays either. He won't lose games for you, and he has more talent in LA than he did in Buffalo, so he should do better there. And he's a perfect mentor for the young, athletic Justin Herbert, who will probably be asked to do similar things as Tyrod Taylor is asked to do. Although the youngster has a bigger arm, so he'll be able to push the ball downfield more. They will play similar styles, and that can be nothing but positive for the young Herbert. Sitting for a year will be good for the rookie. As stats prove, those that have had time to sit and learn behind a veteran tend to have more success as opposed to those that are forced to start right away. I mean, go back through the years. Guys that have been able to sit for one or multiple years have proven to have more success in the NFL than guys that are forced to start on a very bad team. Not saying the Chargers are a bad team by any measure at all, but young quarterbacks their development can get hurt if you put them in too early sometimes. I really like how talented this team is on both sides of the ball, but for some reason, I believe this team is just not destined to do great things. I don't know what it is. They've had fantastic teams over the years. What was the late 2000s when they went 14-2 and then lost in the divisional round of the playoffs. They just do not have good luck when it comes to postseason. I will be secretly rooting for Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers this year, but with opening a new stadium that will most likely bring in more fans from opposing teams rather than the home team, and having a tough schedule, it will be difficult for the Chargers, even if they stay fully healthy, to compete in this division. I do believe they will be in the thick of the division title race, as I project this to be one of the better divisions in the league from top to bottom. I like their chances to improve in offense, cutting back on turnovers that Phillip Rivers gave up. They still have plenty of talent with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, Austin Eckler to get the ball to. And great building blocks on the defensive side. A complete unit already with Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, Derwin James. With their additions should improve the 14th ranking points per game. But their 6th rank in yards allowed per game is within reach if they can keep their respective high-powered division rivals to minimal damage in the games they do play, which I'm not so sure they'll be able to do week in and week out when you're facing guys like Patrick Mahomes and Drew Lock and Derek Carr. I have the Chargers ending up with an 8-8 record, unfortunately, missing out on the playoffs, but possibly getting to see a little bit of Justin Herbert toward the end of the season. Not banking on it, though. I do have them in the playoff race right up until the end of the season. I believe they will be very competitive this year, but with the rest of the division at full strength, I think it will be very hard for them to overcome the schedule that they have. So we got Kansas City winning the division at 11-5, vying for the number 1 seed. And if you're keeping track with me so far, we would have a 3-way tie at the number 1 seed. And that would be with Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo, I believe, so far. With Buffalo having a win over Kansas City, I believe that would give them the number 1 seed. Have to check because that would make them tied with the Ravens. And I'll do a power rankings at the end of all of these division segments, like I said before. And I will project my playoff seedings at that point in time as well. Then we have the Raiders coming in second, trying to get a wild card spot at 10-6 with a good year from Derek Carr that may have him back in the MVP conversation. In his third year with Gruden and a top back in Josh Jacobs, carrying the load from the backfield, finishing in the division third and fourth respectively with 8-8 records apiece, which is nothing to scoff at in this one of the toughest divisions. The Broncos and Chargers will be back in the mix starting in 2021 when Kansas City has to pay Mahomes and may have to lose some of this current regime that they have due to his contract. I like all four of these teams, but there can only be one winner. And I will take the team with the best quarterback and continuity coming back from a weird offseason. That being said, these division matchups will be very good to watch this season. The Western Division in each conference is fantastic from top to bottom, and their games, I promise, will not disappoint this year. Each team will be in every game they play. I don't see them losing by blowouts no matter the case, as long as each team remains mostly healthy throughout the year. So these are my AFC West predictions, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments box below. Thank you guys again so much for stopping by and joining me here today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you like this video, and if you'd like to help the channel out more, go above and beyond, you can do so on my Patreon page. Any and all contributions go directly into this channel to further expand the channel and make the experience here the best one possible for you. I'm also on Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. You can find all these links in the description below. So thanks again, guys, and have a great day. Peace and love.